This is Straight Up Talk with Sharon and Peter. We are both proud Brits and Canadians. This is a no-nonsense weekly podcast about people, life, leadership, and all sorts of stuff. We don't always agree. This is Sharon and Pete with episode 9 of Straight Up Talk. I'm Sharon.
And I'm Pete Johnson.
Topic this week is common sense really all that common? I'll start out with a definition. The most widely accepted definition is the ability to make sound, practical judgments based on everyday experience rather than specialised knowledge or formal training. Common sense is often described as practical wisdom, good judgment, the ability to assess a situation and choose a reasonable course of action, knowledge that most people in a particular group are expected to know. The key point is that common sense is not usually about intelligence. As we know, we talked about last week when we did our podcast on degrees. Someone could be highly educated and still lack common sense in certain situations.
Definitely.
And likewise, someone with little formal education may demonstrate exceptional common sense because they've accumulated practical experience. So, over to you, Peter. What are your thoughts and experiences around common sense?
Well, my experience is obviously in the removals business. Again, I go back to what I did for 35 years of my life. We would get guys coming to work with us in the summer months, like college guys, and loads and loads of brains, loads of intelligence, but no common sense. They would bring stuff out to the truck to be loaded. That all your glass comes out at one time together, all your mirrors, everything like that comes out. They would just bring willy-nilly stuff out, and you'd say to them over and over again every day the same thing: "Don't be bringing this out yet. Wait till you get called for it." But time and time again, they just didn't listen. And these guys were intelligent guys. These were like,
right.
Some of them were at university and just having a midsummer break.
Absolutely. And you just reminded me, as you said that, I worked at a horse ranch for 5 years.
Yeah.
A horse ranch. People would come wearing flip-flops.
I know.
To a horse ranch.
Yeah.
It was like, give your head a shake.
Exactly.
What do you think horses are? They're not dainty ballerinas.
Yeah, 800 kilos on your foot. Yeah,
that's gonna hurt. I asked Greg, our coach at Grand River CrossFit, because he makes me laugh, and he gave us some examples. Now, he's been a martial artist for almost 50 years, and he's been an instructor for 25 of those. He said, it would be common sense not to come to your school and expect to challenge the instructor when you've had no experience.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
I know, yeah.
That somebody who's got no knowledge of this thinks that all of a sudden they know
They're
more.
They're going to go and take him on.
And Greg is not someone you would want to take on. He could throw you clear across the room. He was also in the military, and I think actually military is very interesting. We were talking about this with degrees as well. They often want their colonels, etc., and people who are going up the ladder to have a degree, but they can be dumb as a box of frogs, really, in this way. Greg talks about on the firing range, common sense says you should keep your finger off the trigger at all times. But he had people on the range, and there was always one that let off a shot when they thought they had the safety on.
Yeah, you have plenty of accidents in the military. People,
So that comes down to common sense.
Yeah.
Driving is another one. It's common sense. You come to a stop sign, your turn. Now, what is interesting about this, though, is it cultural, this? Because we've got these stop signs in North America, of course, in the UK.
It's give way, yeah.
We have roundabouts. Roundabouts here. But you have to learn, though. So I'm not sure that this is common sense more than you have to learn it. When you come to a four-way stop sign, whoever gets there first has right of way.
Goes, yeah.
So you have to learn that. So we noticed something else on the way this morning, actually, to CrossFit about our neighbour.
Yeah.
Do tell.
Well, this guy at the top of our street on garbage day, every day without fail, puts his garbage out the night before. And it's getting warmer and warmer now, so You got plenty of raccoons out there late at night searching around for food, and without fail, every single week they go through his garbage. It's all in the streets, all across the street. And he never learns. And you'd think that's just common sense. Just get up in the morning at 8 o'clock. I mean, the garbage guys don't come till 10:30. So you've got plenty of time to do it in the morning. Why would you put it out at night?
Why do you think he does it?
I don't know, because he's got no common sense.
But also, what's the other reason that he...
Well, there's no consequences, because the garbage guys clean it up every week. And must take them forever.
So he hasn't changed his behaviour because there's no need for him to, because there's no consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There was... Go ahead.
Yeah, there are other times where having no common sense or not being aware of the dangers in the workplace, I'm going back to the removals business, where it can be tragic, because there was it was an incident just before we came back to Canada. There was a house in Cadogan Square in central London, Belgravia, that area, and there was guys moving in a settee onto the second floor. And what would normally happen is you'd either get a cradle and put the heavy piece of furniture on the cradle, and then you'd get a couple of guys on the balcony, receive it and pass it into the room. And the reason they do that is because it was too big to go up the stairway.
Right.
So it has to be brought in from the outside. But on this particular job, they had 6 guys all out on the balcony, and they tied ropes to this really heavy settee. It was 150 kilograms, the settee alone. Plus you got the 4 or 5 guys on the balcony. Of course, you know what happened. They went straight through the balcony. The balcony wouldn't take the weight, and 3 of them fell, 2 of them died, and 1 of them was seriously hurt. And they also injured people on the ground as well. So that was having no common sense. Now, somebody on that job should have said, hold on a minute, we're hoisting up a 150 kilogram sofa.
Right.
It must have been a bed settee, I would imagine, with a frame inside it with a heavy mattress to be that heavy. And we'd done a few over the years, but you'd get a high up truck in, and like with a crane, and you'd lift it up that way. You wouldn't rely on the strength of a balcony, because them places in Cadogan Square, they were built in during Queen Victoria's reign, so they're 150 years old. Them buildings, so that metal railing was 150 years old. You're putting your trust in a metal railing that's 150 years old.
So you've got a bunch of guys there, and not one of them. What about the job foreman?
Well, what happened? I read a little bit about the story behind it, and apparently the job was running late. It was a refurb. They was already well over budget. They didn't want to get the hire company in, the crane company in, because they're expensive. There was just £1,000 to hire a truck with a crane for the day. They just thought, well, we just got 6 guys here on the job. We'll just pull it up. And of course, they just went straight through the railings, and they fell about 40 feet to their
demise.
Yeah.
Splat.
Very, very, very tragic story. But again, it shows that not one of them had any common sense. And there were 6 guys on that job.
That's never going to change that level of stupidity, really, because being able to calculate what's going on, the weights of things, but people don't see things because they take it for granted.
Yeah.
I wondered whether common sense changes over time, and it does, because many things that were considered common sense 50 years ago are no longer accepted. It used to be the case where they used to say smoking's harmless. There used to be doctors who would advertise cigarettes, not wearing seatbelts. That wasn't considered an issue. Kids riding in cars without car seats. There's all kinds of things that affect what our common sense really is. So there are some global things about...
Smoking on aeroplanes, you remember that?
Oh, yeah. I know that was... yes, because the smoke stops at row 23. Yeah. It knows not to go any further.
Yeah.
Some of the things that I've seen on YouTube that drive me nuts is don't pet wild animals.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that people...
You have to be told that,
have to be told. There's images of people getting out the cars in the middle of Yellowstone Park, and they're trying to pet a buffalo. Yeah. And then they get...
I'm just going to feed this gorilla. I won't be long.
Well, there aren't any gorillas in Yellowstone Park. But...
No, I'm just saying. In Kenya there is.
Exactly. So there's things that I can't believe that people don't get them. Why would you get out your car to pet a fierce animal?
And safety around horses, as we've said before.
Well, yes. What's interesting about that, though, is you have to think of context. How would people know if they don't know anything about a horse? Now, I think it's different with a wild animal. I don't know how you could not know that wild animals are potentially dangerous. I really am not sure about that. But people coming to the farm when I used to work there, and also drives me nuts as well when I go to a horse show and non-horsey people come, can I stroke your horse? No, you can't.
Yeah.
And can I punch you in the face? Anyway, that's a different topic. But we always have to teach people how to be safe around a horse. If you say to them, where should you stand? To you and me, it's common sense because we know it. You move around a horse and you stick either very, very close to it or very far away.
Exactly.
Because of its kick zone. Yeah. Horses being prey animals see out the side of their heads, their eyes on the either side. So you don't go up and spook a horse, you're going to get kicked or something even worse. But if you don't, so you can't say that all common sense is common sense. Oftentimes it's things that we take for granted because we've had
You've
to
learned
learn
it,
them. So what's accepted as global common sense? One that you always say to me, I mean, we've been together 14 years and whenever you've cooked
14 years.
Whenever you cook something on the on the oven,
it's my favourite.
You go, don't touch that, it's hot.
Don't touch that plate, it's very hot.
I feel like I'm 3 years old or something.
Yeah, but they warn you in McDonald's, don't drink the coffee because it's so hot. So I actually looked. It says on the cup. It says on the.
So I looked that up, right? Because that is actually, people tell that story as though it is about common sense. So the public narrative became, well, somebody sued because the coffee was hot, but the actual case is far more complex. The coffee was reportedly served at temperatures significantly higher than typical home coffee and caused severe third-degree burns.
Yeah.
So evidence presented during the trial suggested there had been numerous prior burn complaints. So the lawsuit became famous because many people saw it as a failure of common sense, but actually it's not. It's a product safety issue. So it became a debate about what common sense actually means. And what's also interesting is it's different in different countries. In the UK, common sense includes things like understatement, social awareness, indirectness and diplomacy. We think that's what they are. In North America, it might be initiative, speaking up, independence. And in Japan, it's very different. Common sense is more about reading the room, harmony, indirect communication. So I think the whole thing about common sense is it might not be actually as common as we think it is, but there are certain things that if you think about what you're doing, you have to be able to filter out what is potentially dangerous just because I haven't been exposed to it before, but to think about what we're doing. Psychologists and sociologists would say that no, common sense actually isn't all that common because it's typically experience plus culture plus assumptions plus context. For example, a manager might say, it's common sense to tell your team when priorities change. But a new manager might not do it because they've never managed people before and they don't know. People don't know what they don't know until they know it.
Until they know it.
It's one of my favourite things.
It's a great saying, that.
Yeah. So we're coming up to time now, but my brutally honest takeaway of the week is just because something is obvious to you doesn't mean it's obvious to someone else, right?
Yeah.
This is where most arguments start. Managers think employees, you should know this. Parents think teenagers, well, you should know that. Customers think, well, businesses should know this. Spouses think partners should know.
Yeah.
But you keep telling me to not touch the hot plate anyway. So reality is that people are operating from different experiences, information and assumptions. So could common sense actually be knowledge that's become invisible to us because we've known it for so long?
Maybe.
Peter, over to you.
Well, you want my fast take on it?
I do. Your brutally honest takeaway of the week.
One of my favourites is don't go swimming in rough seas. Yeah, it's always a no-no, which is something I did when I was living out in Jersey. I used to go for a swim every night after work. And then one particular night it was really rough, and I thought, I'm only going to go out a little way, I'll be all right. It took me half hour to get back.
That's a perfect example of something that should be obvious.
Yeah.
I don't know how anybody could not see that. So that's
That's
great.
my first experience of the high tides in Jersey, the Channel Islands of the UK. They have very high tides and they pull you out.
And I think we overestimate our ability to get out of certain situations as well. We don't think the bad thing is ever going to happen to us.
Yeah.
I think as you get older, we tend to get a bit more,
More savvy.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Overtaking. Don't overtake on a bend.
Yeah.
That sometimes comes about from experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely. Yeah.
And also being road aware, which you and I are, very road aware.
Yeah.
Anyway, so without blowing on,
Yeah.
thank you everyone for listening. If you want any more information or give us an idea about what you want to talk about.
Yeah. Come on. We want some new ideas.
Yes, go to the website beabetteryou.ca. There is a tab called podcast. You can send us an email there. And this week's podcast has been thoughtfully produced by the Isle of Sound. Well, it's good night from me.
And it's good night for me. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.